Hello and welcome to Psyched, the show where we explore psychedelics through social, economic, and political perspectives.
With our first speaker of today, we have Liba wearing Stambollion. Liba paints, writes, makes books, curates, and designs furniture. Ecology, the sacred feminine, and mystic dreams are the recurrent themes in her work. She is also the founder of Dreams and Divinities, a project which unites international visionary, fantastic, and surrealist artists in the name of community and love. The project showcases an eclectic mix of creativity through a series of books and exhibits from prestigious sites and museums to the equatorial forests of Colombia. As of April 2020, Liba has organized 27 events for the group and produced 4 books. Liba has done almost 100 exhibitions worldwide. She has exhibited her paintings in both galleries and museums in Europe, Canada, the USA, South and Central America, Asia, and Australia. Her furniture designs, poems, paintings, and interviews have been featured on television, in newspapers, magazines, books, and numerous articles online. Liba, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to Psyched.
Hi, I'm seeing if, am I good? Can you hear me?
We can hear you great, and you have an image on your screen currently.
Okay, cool. Well, welcome to Paris. So today I'm going to explore something called expressing the inexpressible. And anybody that has voyaged with plants, with any kind of psychoactive agent, with holotropic breathing, meditation, and found themselves in a higher state of connectivity, will know that it's extremely difficult to later explain what was experienced to somebody else. And words just don't have it. And I'm not suggesting that anything really has it, but having the experience itself. But I have come to see that artwork, art and music are a better conduit for expressing that inexpressible experience. And so I'm going to start off with a story about a class that I taught when I was a teacher in Chicago. And this was a class I taught kids from, I taught many different classes from ages 6 to 13 in this particular school. And I gave them all the same class. And in this class, I would have them listen to 30-second segments of music. And so there would be very beautiful, peaceful music. There would be happy, excited music. There would be scary music. There would be all kinds of different music. And so they would listen to a segment, and I would ask the students to draw the shape of the music. And then afterwards, I would ask them to color the music, color the shape of the music. Now, all the young children were absolutely thrilled by the class, and immediately, if it was a peaceful song, they would make beautiful organic shapes like circles or curvilinear shapes and have them very sort of light colors, blues and greens and things like this. Whereas when they heard something the opposite, like a very dramatic or scary song, it would be reds and more sharp lines and triangles and so they responded to that very easily. But by the time you got up to the kids that were 13 years old, they were kind of like, how am I supposed to paint music? And so it was a complete disconnect. It was as if we had been born with this intuitive language to express ourselves without words, where we had an immediate connection with the sort of visceral and the sort of this sort of very intuitive language that we speak to each other when we don't speak the same languages. When we look at each other, if we're traveling somewhere and we look at each other, there's a certain language we have that, you know, a smile on your face, a look of worry, whatever it is, we can sort of pick it up. And this is the same language we use with animals. It's the same language we use with the wind and with all the elements and the earth. This is the common language. And art and music seem to be better conduits for this kind of language. So I curated a gallery for the ayahuasca conference in Girona, Spain last year. And there was a amazing man from the Amazon, from the Huni Queen tribe, an elder, and he was the keeper of all these different ancient icaros. Now, the icaro is a song that is used during a sacred ceremony with plants, mostly ayahuasca. And it is usually a song that comes during a voyage to the seeker, to the shaman, to the person, to the ayahuasqueros that is doing it. And it is used later to help, to guide, to, you know, it has a function. And this particular Huni Queen elder had a whole bunch of songs that were in languages that were no longer living. They no longer exist. Many linguists came to him and said, would you please translate them? We want to, you know, wrap into those languages. And he said, I can't translate these into words. I can only paint them. And so this is where I'm going to just go and try to share my screen. Let me see if I can do this properly. And we'll be able to get into some visuals here. Okay, so this is at the ayahuasca conference, and this is the Huni Queen elder, and he's in front of one of the big paintings that which is depicting one of the songs, which is depicting an icaro, which is the sacred song that came to whoever wrote it during a sacred ceremony. And he would put, as you can see with my cursor, he would put his hand over a certain part of the painting as he was singing the song, and as his song continued chronologically, so did his movement throughout the painting. So voila. So now we're going to go look at a whole bunch of nice paintings. The next part of this presentation is broken into 3 parts. And the first part, let's see how we get this to move. There we go. The first part deals with the deity in art, the psychoactive deity in art. So this particular deity is called Wachuma. He's the deity of the San Pedro cactus, which is a psychedelic cactus. And you can see right here, he's holding it in his hand. And this is something that's around 3,500 years old. It's from the circular plaza of the temple at Chavin de Huantar, which is in the northern highlands of Peru. And here from the same temple, we have also a depiction of Wachuma, but here he is having an experience. You know, again, we do not know what the experience, when as a painter, when I paint something that is depicting a very profound journey that I had, whether it's with plants or lucid dreaming or whatever it is, I don't expect the viewer then later to know all the details of what I went through. But we can get the excitement and we can get the movement and the electricity of this painting. It just vibrates. I love this particular piece. Also 1500 BCE. So Let's go to the next one. This is a contemporary version of Wachuma done by a contemporary painter, one Luis Tamani. And you can see right here in his head, you have the San Pedro. And dear to the Wachuma are the owls. So Luis has painted them on his shoulders. And he's in prayer with all these wonderful totem animals coming from his energetic center. You can see there's a deer, there's all kinds of creatures. It's beautiful. So that's a contemporary version. Now we're going to go all the way back to the turn of the millennial, around 100 to 300 before Common Era. And these little guys are from Guatemala. The little brothers, I think anybody who's done psilocybins probably recognized what they were immediately. They're very cute. They seem to just sort of, I believe that those are little deities of the psilocybin. And here's some blown up ones. Unfortunately, I don't have a very good resolution on these. These are beautiful as well. Here we have a whole forest of them. I think some of these are more contemporary. Anyway, so here now we're in Egypt. I think everybody can recognize the style. And this is, for the Egyptians, what we see in their art a lot is the blue lotus. The blue lotus flower is a narcotic. And according to Rosalie David, the keeper of Egyptology at the Manchester Museum, she says that the lotus was a very powerful narcotic, which was used in ancient Egypt and presumably was widespread in this use because we see many scenes of individuals holding a cup and dropping a lotus flower into the cup, which contained wine. And this would be a way of releasing the narcotic. Now, obviously, this is not a picture of that, but I didn't have a picture of that, but this is definitely the deity of the blue lotus. This is Nefertem, and he is so important that this deity of the lotus flower was at the creation of the world and had arisen from the primal waters. So this is definitely a conduit to our very most ancient self. And he represents both the first sunlight and the smell of the Egyptian blue lotus flower. Or so I read, but he probably represents a lot more. We can leave our imagination to that. So now we're gonna skip into Greece. Greece, you know, this is not a sculpture from 1500 before Common Era. But the Eleusinian mysteries were from around 1600 BCE to 392 Common Era. And they basically were around the cult of Demeter, the mother, the great mother, and her daughter Persephone, who is lost, who is stolen away into, you know, the land of the dead, but is rescued and reborn as the spring, as the new mother, in the endless cycle of rebirth. And in the Eleusinian mysteries, we don't know too much about them because they were mysteries, but we do know that they drank a substance called the kykeon, and I might be pronouncing that wrong. Oh, and speaking of pronouncing wrong, my name is Liba, and because we've only met on, but just for everybody out there, my name is Liba. But thank you for the beautiful introduction. So anyway, so I am going to mispronounce all the time too, because we do so much of our meetings and our reading online or in books, and so this substance was called the kykeon. And we don't know exactly what was in this substance, but there has been speculation from a lot of different sides. And one of the most popular hypotheses are that there was the use of ergot, which is a fungal parasite which we find on barley or rye grain. And you see in this picture, Demeter holding these grains along with poppies and the great snake of prophecy and wisdom that sacred plant voyagers are sure to meet on the road. You know, this is a very archetypal and ancient symbol and totem We have the double snake going all the way back to sculptures as far back as 9,000 BCE. That's 11,000 years ago in Iran. Very, very old archetype of wisdom and prophecy, and sacred voyaging, which is where we get that wisdom and prophecy. So poppies and barley, which probably had ergot in it, which is, it contains the alkaloids ergotamine, which is precursor to LSD. So, so you do have that psychoactive thing happening with the grain, and you also have it in the poppies. And of course you get opium and heroin eventually, but people weren't doing it in that sort of extreme way back then. So it was probably more like opium. Okay, well, here we go with Demeter and Persephone again, and another hypothesis that they were using magic mushrooms. Terence McKenna speculated that the mysteries were focused around a variety of psilocybins, including Amanita muscaria, and voila. And if we go back to where maybe all these mysteries started, we will go back to Crete. Excuse me one second, there we go. And this is probably where the whole cult of Demeter and Persephone came from, and where the whole poppy, the use of poppy during ceremonies, sacred ceremonies started. And here you see a classic image of a Minoan priestess who has poppies in her headdress. And voila, so that's a little bit of the history of where it came from. And you can see she's in a state of surrender. And well, everybody gets to read what they want into it, but I feel that it's sort of this reception, like I'm here, I receive. It's a beautiful stance. Anyway, so I'm going to jump on to Egypt. And this is interesting, it's a funeral stele, but I felt that when I saw it the first time with all these, you have this this one woman over here with Horus on the other side, and you have the connection between Horus and this woman being morning glory seeds, and you have the blue lotus right over here. So there's something happening with these psychoactive plants. And we do know that the species of morning glories was distributed from Egypt south to Somalia, and into the Arabian Peninsula, and south to Yemen and Oman. So, you know, it was widely spread. So let's see. So here we get to a contemporary artist. And here, the Voyager. We're in the, we're going to really explore the Voyager now, because that's a crucial part of our art history with expressing the inexpressible. Here we have artist Bruce Ramel, a British artist, who is expressing his salvic journey with salvia. And you're, I'm sure, very welcome to read what you need to read into that one. And the next one is done, it's called The Purge, and it's done by Chris Dyer, who will be speaking a little later after Amanda Sage. And for anybody who's done ayahuasca, you know, or even mushrooms, there is a point when you have to clean yourself out before you're welcome into the sacred garden. And that's when you purge out all that is not useful to our best potential as loving, creative, beautiful beings, and we let the light in to all that space we just made. And I think this is an absolutely amazing piece by Chris, which depicts that. This one's by Autumn Sky. It's a very beautiful piece. It's called Mycelium Dreaming. This one's called Caught in the Web by Martina Hoffman. Extremely powerful piece. I mean, that ultimate surrender to the power of the jungle and the power of the medicine and all the totems is just an extremely powerful piece. Have we all been here before? And this piece is by Mauro Perez, who is a Shipibo artist, and it's of the great curandero shaman Olivia, who was killed a couple years ago. She was according to the people who worked with her, a great beacon of love. And you can see this expressed in her smile, in her gentleness, and in the way that the hummingbird is communing with the medicine in her hand. There's so much magic and power. It's a very beautiful piece. So let's get deeper into that experience. Here we get into the Huichol Indians who use peyote. You can see the peyote button right in the center. And there's a very, very strong spiritual experience used with the peyote. The priests are called Murakamis, who are the caretakers of the deer. And the deer itself is sort of the conduit, is sort of the passageway from this world into that spirit world. And the gentleness and the sweetness. Here you see all these little peyote buttons around. Very beautiful. And there's a huge culture of beautiful artwork you could just look at for days with the Huichol art. I love it very, very much. This is my piece. So this was a piece that was painted after my very first ayahuasca experience. And I called on Grandmother Buffalo and asked me what this plant was all about. And she showed me this, which transcended the duality. This one-eyed jaguar, which split this whole landscape of life and death. Just this medicine transcends it, transcends all that is dualistic. And we find ourselves in that space of unity. This one is by the Welch brothers, and we get back to the San Pedro. Here we don't have a picture of the Huachuma, but we have a picture of the experience, and we know that it's probably a San Pedro experience because that's a large part of the composition there. And the next piece is from Amanda Sage, who goes on right after me, and this is her entrance into the sacred garden with all the different sacred plants. I think that Morning Glory, or the Datura, I'm not quite sure. Poppies, San Pedro, mushrooms, and amanitas, and marijuana, and well, there's probably peyote down there, and things I probably missed. Not sure. There's a whole cornucopia happening on this piece. So this last little bit is on the paraphernalia, and here we see a pipe that is sculpted in a wall in a temple in Dendra. And they probably not only smoked lotus, but also mandrake and cannabis, and very possibly opium in these pipes. So here's another one. Gorgeous, I want one. And here we arrive at a little inhaler for, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, cohoba, which is a hallucinogen made of ground tree seeds and was used by the Taino shamans, the indigenous peoples of the Caribbean. And it's a very sweet piece, and it's from 1500 BCE, so it's 3,500 years ago our ancestors were voyaging like this. This is a little stone mortar and pestle, and it's from Peru. This is one of my favorites right down here in the corner. These are from a pre-Columbian culture from 1500 BCE. And it's Quispenique vessels. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. So this looks like peyote. This is San Pedro. You know, you see some of these, totems. And these are little effigy spoons, also from Chavin de Huantar. I'm going to finish the images and this presentation with a piece from dear friend and artist Mark Henson. And here he has this sort of passing on of knowledge from elders to the next generation, or actually this looks like a grandson. And so she's got the mushrooms, there's the cannabis, here's the Datura and the morning glories and the poppies and the, oh look, there's little peyotes down there. So she's passing on this knowledge. Let me see. So there we go, little cornucopia of images to soak in. So I am now available for questions if anybody is interested in if anybody has a question.
Liba, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Beautiful images, beautiful descriptions. Would love to just jump into a couple audience questions. So one of them is asking if digital support is provided in some of this amazing art.
Well, it's a good question. I'm a bookbinder. I actually physically build books, and then I started making books, which is sort of the base of Dreams and Divinities, where I would gather all these different artists together around a theme, and we do a collaborative project and make a book. And since all this online stuff has been happening, we've been doing much more online. So I've been putting some of the books and some of the catalogs and some of the stuff we've done online little by little. And so yes, you can see some of this stuff and way more online. And also you can see right now I have I think there's, I can't even remember how many people there are, but there's something like almost 50 people, 50 artists in an online show on the Dreams and Divinity site. If you go to the home page, you get right onto it, and you have a whole bunch of contemporary people doing art around the whole COVID and how did we get here, that kind of stuff. Is it because we're filthy, disgusting, viral beings ourselves? We better clean up our act. Voila. But anyway, so Dreams and Divinities, just Google it, and you can have access to a whole bunch of different links and different shows online and catalogs and things to look at.
Mm-hmm. And from your experience chatting with artists and looking at artwork, do you feel that some of these artists are using graphic design tools as well to be able to make more vibrant art, or would you say the majority of folks are using more traditional mediums like oils, acrylics?
Excellent question. There's an incredible range of eclectic technique.
Mm-hmm.
There was a very strong movement of fantastic art. That's not visionary art, but a lot of it was very spiritual. That came out after the war, in the Second World War, with Ernst Fuchs and Hundertwasser and many other artists. And Ernst Fuchs became quite a sort of central figure in the whole visionary art scene, because he was a teacher of technique to people like, I know Amanda Sage worked with him, and Martina Hoffman and Robert Venosa, and many artists, you can just list them on, worked with him and sort of got some traditional technique. But even his traditional technique had it a la Ernst Fuchs. It wasn't 100% his traditional technique. We can learn about the Mish technique and everything, but he would sort of adapt it from student to student. I learned the Mish technique from the artist Bridget Marlin, very different from how other people do it. So there's a wide range. So you have something very traditional like the Mish technique, which was used in the Renaissance, all the way to digital art. There's a lot of amazing digital artists. We work a lot with Andrew Jones, and him being sort of the pinnacle in my book. Everybody has a different opinion of, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But I also work with a lot of Indigenous artists. I work with naive outside art. If it's beautiful and sincere, it's from the heart, it's in my book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Well, that's beautiful. And one other audience question is asking, they're very intrigued by the patterns and subjects and how they resonate. Do you think that this is, these patterns, these codes that we're seeing, is this part of the inner architecture of the mind? Is it, a legacy effect from our ancestors? Where is this deriving from in your opinion?
Well, I'd have to know exactly which pattern she means, but however, there is sort of an archetypal pattern that I do see amongst a lot of visionary art, where you have this sort of either fractal or wave pattern. So when we are tripping, we are sort of disintegrating we're shifting into other states of being. And there is this, I think most people have been able, if you've voyaged, have seen this sort of auric, sort of people call trails. It's sort of that energetic field that's sort of vibrating out. And this you see a lot in visionary art. You see very vibrant colors because the visionary experience is extremely vibrant. So, and excuse me. And in terms of symbols, you know, I'd say probably two of the trademarks I see a lot are fractals and this sort of vibratory, you know, and layered sort of vibration that goes through the painting. Excuse me.
Definitely beautiful. Well, Liba, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you sharing your insights, all of these beautiful art pieces, and everything else. So looking forward to continuing the conversation later. And again, thank you.
With pleasure. Thanks so much for having me. And I'm looking forward to hearing our next two speakers, Amanda and Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.